part.
Yeah, you go ahead and say it, and I'll go ahead and delete it. I ain't got no
Okay.
choice but to. So, you
Okay.
know, but hey, I mean, this is, this is street recovery. On today, street recovery. Welcome back for one. Took me What took me so long is moving in a newer office, bigger office, more space. So a lot of things are gonna get done. So uh, on the show this morning, yeah, it's morning me doing this. I have someone that's very special. Uh, she studied clinical mental health clinical counseling at Missouri. Is it University of Missouri St. Louis?
Yep.
And she also studied clinical psychology at PHSU St. Louis. She's also the host of Convos with Anita Santiago. Uh, there she is, Miss Anita Santiago. Uh, very, very well-rounded person. We just had
Thank you.
a small conversation, but through the podcast, I've I'm gonna say this. I learned a lot viewing you on here with the people that you have connections with and everything. Um, Let the people know everything about you. I can only say so much.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me onto your podcast. Mental health is my passion. I started with a master's degree a few years ago from UMSL University, Missouri, St. Louis, with a focus in trauma. I'm from St. Louis, and there's a lot of trauma everywhere, but particularly here. And I wanted to dedicate myself to the community. While I was in my program, I realized that a master's wouldn't be enough, so I decided to pursue a doctorate, and I'm in year 5 of my clinical psychology studies at Ponce Health Sciences University, PHSU, here in St. Louis. But with less of a focus on trauma, but kind of pivoting to severe mental illness and the intersection of the legal system. You know as well as I do that mental health and police,
Hmm.
often intersect. Like our jails have become the default mental health place for a lot of people, and whatever I can do to help my community be more educated or bring issues to light, that's what I'm down for. I'm also a podcaster like you, Convos with Anita Santiago podcast on all platforms. Check it out. Again, just highlighting and bringing issues to the community, maybe in a different way that people haven't considered. Um, yeah, I got a lot of hobbies. I do a lot of things and I'm always on the move, but I'm so excited to be here to talk to you about this topic today because I feel like this particular topic doesn't get
Yes,
enough
yes.
airplay or whatever.
You're exactly right. Street recovery, uh, the mental health side of dealing with the street life, the traumas, the abuse. Uh, it's domestic violence months as well. Excuse me. Um, we overlook this part of street life, which is the mental health side, that the abuse, the traumas, and everything that carry on throughout life from these behaviors and activities. Um, Man, I was listening to one of your episodes with Pastor Montgomery. Um, a lot of men, street life, they are we as man, period. But we carry this along life with us. We're trained to say nothing. When ladies or somebody asks what's wrong, we say nothing. When we're going through some things, or we have this, uh, how do you call it? This stuff that's on our mind that we can't shake. but we steady say nothing is wrong. And as you and the pastor said, when someone keep asking them, I said nothing, is the
Right.
response. When um, can you explain why is it that, for one, us black males, we have that in us where we won't, share what's going on with us.
Well, there's that's a multifaceted question, right? But let's talk about the street life. I mean,
Hmm.
the 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 intersection of what men are doing or required to do as part of that lifestyle fundamentally means you can't talk about it.
Hmm.
You got to hold it close to the vest. Your life is on the line a lot of times. Every time you're moving around, and you have to pay attention to what's going on because that life requires that. And even I heard one of your guests speaking about how after he had got out of the street life, he had to understand that these were the things that he had done, and he carries that around on in him. He doesn't really talk about it, and I think he kind of mentioned on your show it was like the first time he was ever really talking about it.
Yeah.
It's not that men don't want to talk about it, but in the grand scheme of that lifestyle, do I have time to be in my feelings? Feelings can be a liability in street life. And I feel like for a lot of men, um, you're moving, you're grooving, you're trying to get this, that, and the other done, depending on what part of street life that you're in.
Hmm.
So it doesn't lend itself to talking about it. And then we as women, supporting our men, we try to support them and get them to talk about these different things they go through. How do you talk about some of the things that you're required to do as part of street life?
Yeah.
Loose lips sink ships is what they say,
Yeah.
and you're not. If you can't trust the person that you're talking to, then you absolutely can't talk about it. For people who've been in street life for a long time, that creates a pattern where it's just not easy to be open.
Hmm. Um, Coming up, we've seen a lot of things happen. We're both from the inner city. Um, a lot of, I'm gonna say, our classmates. We see they were some of the best, and then you as you go on life and you see them hanging out there, and they become the worst of the worst. Um, a lot of times you see the offspring of these classmates or friends or family members, I'm gonna say, and it seems like it's a repeated process with this type of thing. A lot of times you look and say, well, what's wrong with them and that family over there? Is it in the DNA, or is it? I mean, what is it that it's a repeated process?
I had a client one time that was explaining to me that when he got out of jail, he was at an intersection. Does he go back to the streets or does he try to go legit? And what he was saying was that when he was young, um, on his block, the guy, and I'm just trying to,
Hmm.
summarize here, the guy that made sure that they ate and made sure that the block was straight, that was something that had been happening for a couple of generations. And so he felt this responsibility to step into that role because the OGs were gone.
Yeah.
And, do I take care of the block like I've been taught? That's been my experience that we take care of each other because we all we got. Or do I try to go out here and get a trade, get a job, and then see all my money go to taxes, struggle, and maybe not even be able to make it? And one of the things that he said that resonated, like really hit me hard, he said, when he's in the streets, his family wants for nothing.
Hmm. Yeah.
Everybody,
Like a
mama,
lot. Yeah.
kids, everybody's taken care of. Nobody's worried about nothing. But then when you come out of that life and you try to go legit and you deal with all the different facets of being a black man,
Yeah.
is it worth it? And he, I don't know what decision he made, but I was like, wow. We think that people just don't want to get out of that life. You have to really understand sometimes that though that life builds community. And
Yes.
for people who never felt like they belonged or never felt like they really had family or people they can trust, that community becomes everything to them. That's why you see generation after generation, because this is where we safe. This is where we know we taken care of. We ain't got to look outside of this block or this group or our community, because we know at the end of the day, the people around us are taking care of us.
Yes. Um, what we spoke of, me and a couple of other guys, uh, the crack epidemic, particularly, the type of mental abuse that you have on yourself uh, when you finally come to terms. What did I do to my race? Um, how many guys and ladies in our community really came to terms with that, or do they acknowledge that at all?
Well, I'm going to give you my opinion. The trauma behind realizing what you've done, if you sold drugs to the community, you've had to do things that you can't speak of. You've hurt people. You've been a part of hurting people. When you have to step into that space to realize it, how do you deal with that? I mean, can you really ever accept that?
Yeah.
I think people try. I think people who want to heal from the traumatic experiences that they've had in street life want to do that. But how do I look in the mirror and accept that and then still know that I'm a good person and I'm valuable? And what's the message that we as society give people? Well, if you've been in a gang and you've murdered people, then you're the scum of the earth. Or if you're a woman that stood by a man and you knew he was doing selling drugs to the community, you're the scum of the earth. So the messaging we give is that there's no redemption. The messaging we give is that once you're damaged or you're contaminated, that, that's what you're going to always be.
Hmm.
However, that's not true.
Correct.
That's not true. And we can help people get there, but it's painful and it's hard. And a lot of times the amount of commitment to yourself that you need to walk through that process is more than people are ready for.
You know, I I listen and look at what's going on over in Africa uh, for a long time now. How many of those guys committed the genocide and everything back in the 90s, 80s, and everything? And I try to, well, not really compare it, but with what we've done over here in Black America with their genocide. Not that I'm trying to compare it, but I'm looking at, okay, genocide over there, genocide over here. Which is the greater? And you really, I'm going to say the genocide over here that we're doing, uh, because it's total disrespect, I think, and it's total. I'm going to say, I don't know. It's just it's not like what they're doing over there when they're committing the genocide. Not that I'm comparing them, and both of them are
Mm-hmm.
totally wrong. They're doing it over there for specific reasons, feed the village, and it's not right. But
Mm-hmm.
and I look at it over here, we can go and get jobs and things like that, but a lot of us choose to make the fast money and be a part of that life. Um, I don't know how we recover and move forward, knowing that the great the great genocide that we committed for 3, 4 decades or more. How do we bounce back and try to get this thing together in Black America, American period, but more Black America?
Well, you bring up a really good point there, and let me just say, like, this is a broad brush, but you can also not only look at Africa but Haiti,
Yes.
where you have gangs that roam the streets that they taking out everybody. Um, when you look internationally, a lot of those conflicts are tribal and ethnic.
Hmm.
This tribe and that tribe, and that conflict goes back many years.
Hmm.
For us, I feel like it's multifaceted. Like, we have the part that, yes, we can go get jobs, but if I can make $5,000 a week, do I really want to work for 725
No.
and face all the discrimination and all the difficulties that come with that minimum wage job, no opportunity to move up? And oh, by the way, in this economy, 725 is not going to pay a house note.
Nothing.
725 is not going to pay my rent. 725 is not going to put me in a car, but I can step over here and I can make more money than all of you professionals. Are you really giving me a choice?
Yeah.
Do I really have a choice? And the thing that we have to understand is that while street life has its dark side, there's a lot about street life that makes it very powerful and why people gravitate to it. A sense of community, of belonging, of family,
Yes. Yes.
a sense that I'm taken care of, a sense that within my community we have the rules that we live by, and I understand that.
Hmm.
And I know that you got my back and I got yours. We don't really have that in society right now.
Correct.
We're disconnected. A lot of us don't know our cousins and aunts. Like back in the day, you knew everybody in your family, but now not so much. So for us to pull ourselves out of this cycle that we're in, I think about Chicago. I'm in St. Louis, but Chicago is off the chain.
Yeah.
If we don't feel connected and we don't feel like we have community, then we're never going to be able to challenge the assumption that we can't have it.
Right.
And that's a building process. We have to build the community we want. If we want unity, that doesn't mean we all think alike. That doesn't mean we have to act alike. It just means that we understand that we're tied together and we have a vested interest in everyone in our community, Black America, doing well. So we stick together.
Yes.
That's how we pull ourselves out. But that sense of belonging, when people come from places where where their parents worked 3 jobs and they were never at home, or just feeling disconnected in the school system. One of the things that you see if you look at statistics, when Black men start school, when young Black boys start school, they're usually really enthusiastic about school until about the
Yes.
fourth grade. Then the fourth grade, it just turns into not a good experience
Why is
for
that?
them. Hmm?
Why is that?
I think that's because they start you start running into some of the situations that's endemic in the education system, where young Black boys are marginalized. They're not treated, um, or they're not celebrated for their brilliance. They're not encouraged to pursue their passions. They get relegated to being aggressive, ADHD, not able to sit still because they're bored, and the school system doesn't cater to them. So now you have these young boys that are disinterested in school a lot of times. Now you've got the streets pulling them. Hey, well, over here you belong, bro. We love you, just like it's all good. Like, you ain't gotta do all of that. Just come and be who you are. And so if we really want to dig out of this, we really got to figure out how to connect better.
Um, that right there, we're going into the youth. Uh, the most influencing things these days for our youth is the music. Uh, I'm a hip hop head. I love hip hop, all kind, uh, from the beginning all the way up to now. But the last 20 years, this kind of hip hop that's taken over is really sending our youngsters to a place where sometimes there's no return. I'm gonna say, and it becomes a lost cause in some cases. How how much do you think our hip hop music has played a part in this genocidal? I'm gonna keep calling it that because I think that's really what it is. Process that we're you know doing to ourselves.
Okay, Dale, so you look like you're in my age group. So let's go all the way back to
Yeah.
NWA and Ice
Yeah.
T, right?
Yes.
When rap and hip hop lyrics were about the gang life on the West Coast, basically.
Yeah.
Those songs were reflective of what those young men went through in living that life, and they were bringing it to the forefront. Why? Because it was real life for them.
Yeah.
Now today's lyrics, still talk about those things, but a lot of people, I don't want to get in trouble here, but some artists are talking about a life they've never lived,
Correct.
and so it becomes a like a fiction. I'm telling a story. And in my mind, that story is I'm coming down the street, the Draco and all of that, and I'm going out
Hmm.
in a blaze of glory. And now the story becomes a fairy tale that young people buy into, and even the women, because the lyrics around women being hard and ratchet and being as hard as their man is now something we glorify.
Yeah.
And we used to didn't do that. Womanhood was always seen as something soft and nurturing and edifying. And now it's like, if you can't be turned up as much as that man that you're with or that guy you're with, then you have no credibility. And so now we've pivoted to how hard can I be? As a woman, I'm saying this applies to the women too.
Yes.
How hard can
Yes.
I be? I don't smile when I go out because I'm hard. Because I wish you would, because
Yeah.
I got that edge on me. Because somehow I've translated that into being what I need to be. And as a society, we've kind of been asleep at the wheel saying, well, we can't really do anything about it. I tell you what, if you think you can't do anything about it, think back to when your granny was around.
Hmm.
Things just did not fly. And even if you listen to what you listened to and you went where you went, when you got around certain people in your family, those expectations and those values were set.
Yep.
It's like, hey, I don't know what you're doing over there, but when you in my house,
Yeah.
this is what I expect. I feel like having experience in the education system, I've taught college for 9 years.
Hmm.
I feel that we've, as a community, because we're not connected anymore, we don't have a way to transmit the values. We don't have a way to transmit the expectations to people within our community. We're letting the music do it. We're letting the movies do it. And then we go, wow, I don't understand why people are like that. Because we as a community are not setting the standards. Do you remember when you would walk home from school and if you stepped on somebody's grass or you were out of line,
Hmm.
you got told on or maybe even spanked by the neighbor?
Yes.
Then you were going to get it from your parents and
Correct.
maybe some aunts and uncles, right? So this whole community surrounding you had the same expectation. Don't mess with things that aren't yours. When you go in the store, don't touch anything if you're not going to buy it. And we got that messaging across the board, not
Hmm.
just from our parents, but from grandma, from aunties, from teachers.
Yes. Yes.
We don't do that now.
Well,
So are we surprised?
and and this is what I had conversations with people about. We can't sit up here. A lot of the former street guys, we can't sit up here and criticize the youngsters from the things that they're doing when a lot of guys sat in the house and cooked up crack and whatever into, with these kids in the house. So what do you expect when this kid is inhaling the crack fumes? What do you expect when this kid see you cooking up in the house and using right there on the table? What do you expect? Um, what what I feel, what we can do to redo all this thing is go back to the hood and give your time. Go
That's
back.
it.
No matter
That's
what it
it.
is, go back to the hood and give your time. Um, my family, uh, going on 40 years now, we went back to the hood, coached football, got a $1 million football stadium built in the heart of the projects. Never done before in this country. Uh, that's just a piece of what you can do. It don't take a lot to go back and try to change some things. But more and more people will not come back to the hood that they destroyed and try to fix things. This is where I go, what the hell is wrong with you? You destroyed it. Why can't you come back and fix it? And a lot of what we hear from a lot of people, rappers or whatever, you see what they did to Nipsey Hussle, or when you go back to the hood, this is what happens. Well, hell, man, this is the environment you created. Now you scared to go back?
Yeah. And I think, like, for me personally, going back to the communities I grew up in, I went back to my high school and I was
Mm,
a substitute teacher for 2 years because my high school was off the chain. And I wanted to show those young people that, hey, this is not a label. I've done a lot of my counseling work on grants and different opportunities where I could go into neighborhoods and environments where we're just having a conversation. I'm not trying to throw mental health services at you. I'm saying, hey, I see you,
yeah.
and I hear you. We have one of the places I worked at here in St. Louis, really high gunplay, and kids would often be in apartments with members of their family who were ODing on heroin, and the kids are witnessing that, and when we damage children, they turn into damaged adults if they don't get help. So going into those communities and saying, "Hey, I know it's hard. I know it's tough. We don't have the answers, but I see you, and guess what? We'll get there together. But I see you." And that's another thing. Like, we know the street life is real. Why do we, those of us that are not living in the hood now, why do we act like it doesn't exist or it only
Right.
exists in the music? Drive around any city, it doesn't matter what city, any city, it's like going into another world. The challenges are hard. It's real. It's a hard life. It's just hard. But if we start acknowledging that this is us,
Hmm.
I'll tell you one of the easiest. I tell people all the time, if you really want to make a difference, volunteer.
Yes.
There are so
Yes.
many organizations here in St. Louis. At one point, I don't know if it's still true now, but our big brothers and big sisters in St. Louis had like a 3 year wait.
Oh,
These are
wow.
kids that need. These are kids that need people, good people in their lives.
Hmm.
And it's not. You don't have to do it 40 hours a week. Go back to the school district that you came through and volunteer. One of the things that used to frustrate me as a volunteer in the school district where my son went to school was that this is a predominantly black school district. Where are the parents?
Yes.
Why is this the same 6 or 10 or 15 of us here, for the last few years? Where's everybody at? And I get some people work 2 and 3 jobs, but we've checked out of the responsibility to our community. If we want the schools to be what we want them to be, we need to be in there double checking and saying,
Hmm.
hey, you said you were going to do this. I'm here to make sure you're doing that.
Yes. You know,
Um,
I've learned to do that at a early parenthood stage.
mhm,
My kids in first grade and kindergarten, they're in there learning. I go up, I park my truck outside. I'm on the job. I park my truck
mhm,
outside. I go into school, sign in, and I just go walk, look in that door, see what they're doing. And they don't see me, but sometimes they did see me. And I made that a habit all the way up until they were in maybe middle school, maybe a little bit before that. But they knew I would be up there to check on them. And I never once have I had a problem with my kids in school.
mhm,
Uh, my kids, both graduated. They didn't go to college or anything like that, but they never gave the teacher any problem, never disrespected the teacher. When you apply the least, that was the least amount to do. Just take your ass up
mhm,
there and check on these kids while they're in school.
mhm. Right.
That way, you make a relationship with the teachers, other parents, the security guards, whoever. Hey, I see your kid. He good. I don't never see him do nothing. And that, as a parent, is what you want to hear. Your kid never gets in trouble. But
Mhm,
a lot of us, we don't do the bare minimum to go and check up on our kids.
mhm.
And I think that right there is what sends a message to our children that mama or daddy don't care because they never come up to the school and go on field trips.
Let me throw this out there too. Shout out to all the black men that are doing their part to be there in their
Hmm.
families' lives and their kids' life. There are so many men that are out there
Yes,
doing it.
yes.
So shout out to each and every one of you. But this is something that I've noticed in the communities here. There are often spaces where men used to be present where they're not present anymore.
Hmm.
Houses of worship, schools, different community activities. There used to be an expectation that you would see men there, and more you don't. And I think that's because part of it is societal weirdness where men don't feel comfortable, or
Yeah,
there's too
yeah.
much going on. I don't need no problems with people looking at me because I look aggressive and I'm just sitting over here because I got off of work. But I feel that what you said resonated with me deeply, because the presence of men that children can look up to is very important. And I think we downplay that.
Hmm.
Yeah, as single women, we can do a lot with raising kids and all that. I'm not taking away from anybody's commitment to being a good parent, but there is a psychological thing that happens when kids know that there are men in their lives, in their community, that are standing there ready to
Yes,
protect them.
yes.
That's a whole different feeling than I may have to, as an 8-year old, feel like I got to protect my mom and my
Hmm.
sisters because there are no men around.
Uh,
And I think we have to
that
think about how that impacts us.
well, for so long, I seen my father be the uh, the big brother, the father figure, the uncle to so many brothers down in the projects and all over the city, not just the projects, because they used to travel from all over the city to come down to this football program.
Mhm.
And here it is, 30, 40 years later. My dad sometimes don't remember certain guys, and they come up and give him a hug and pick him up and you know tell him thank you, for being there, uh, pushing them to be great on the football field. A lot of them never went and did anything in high school or anything like that, but they say, "Hey, man, you saved me." These little talks or whatever, and you hear this over and over again. I see the joy on my dad's face when he tells these stories. I don't
Mhm.
need no money or no such and such. Them guys coming up from me 40, 50 years ago telling me, hey, I saved their life, that's enough.
Mhm.
The bare minimum. Go and teach a kid to play a sport.
Yeah.
My dad wasn't a, he was an athlete, but he wasn't a football player. And he took uh, project kids, as they used to call us, took it and made it the Dallas Cowboys of youth football in the state, I'm going to say. But these type of things can be done. You
Mm-hmm.
just it's going to
Absolutely.
take time. The mental health stage of a kid when they see this going on, it sparks something. Some kids they go on to do great. Some kids they fall victim. But a lot of those kids that go on to do great, they they learn something from a game and my
Mm-hmm.
and
Yep.
those men figures, and they go on
Mm-hmm.
to do great things. Excuse me. Um, the as you said, the appearance of a man being there, even though it's maybe 5, 6 months out the year that you spend time with this kid, the
Mm-hmm.
appearance of a man being there, that boy or that girl never forgets. No matter what they're going through at home, they can't. They look forward to coming to spend time with that man that's teaching
Yep.
them and on their butts, about whatever they're doing wrong. What I'm going to say is this: a lot of us black males, men, period, have failed uh, a lot of society. But I see a lot of us that are coming back and doing
Yep.
things the right way, starting within our homes, because dealing with that epidemic, the last 30 years, from the late 70s all the way up, that wasn't easy to realize that. Hey, what
Mm-hmm.
the hell is this what this
Right.
all about? And you get sucked into that. Excuse me. Um, DNA. How much of this stuff is in our DNA to keep? I'm going to say again, putting ourselves through this savagery.
Well, I don't believe it's in our DNA.
Hmm.
I believe it is social learning though. And I think we have to normalize how we get out of this space where we just accept it.
Hmm.
So being in mental health, I'm a big proponent of therapy. I'm a big proponent of self-reflection and working on ourselves. But let me present something to you that a lot of people don't think about. When children grow up in these environments, in these experiences where they're seeing people OD on drugs, they're trying to walk to school without getting shot,
Hmm.
their friends are being killed. If you look at a lot of these children, they exhibit symptoms of PTSD. If and they don't have the capacity to deal with it like we do as adults. We're broken. The children are broken. Our community is broken. So we have to start healing. An example you gave was great. Like sports can be a way for children to heal from some of the experiences they've been through, as well as learn what a healthy relationship looks like, what it feels like to be able to operate when someone asks you to do something and you need to do it.
Hmm.
Coaching. There are all these different types of experiences that we can have outside of therapy that give us kind of like that same effect. Our issue is that it's often difficult for us, like you just said, to acknowledge that this is where we're at,
Hmm.
and we have a responsibility to push each other to a place that's better. So, for example, in the work that I do, I don't go around thumping people over the head. You need to go to therapy. You need to go to therapy. Hey, what's your greatest need? And do I know a resource that I can help you with? The practice that I'm at now, it's all Black women, people of color work there, dedicated to the Black and Brown community for people who have been in the street life or recovering from street life, there are a lot of therapists that are dedicated just to that. There's a
Yeah.
big therapist out in California. She goes by the handle of the trap therapist, and she basically deals with people who come out of gang life. So there are a lot of people that are dedicated to helping people deal with the aftermath of being in street life, but there's also a lot of people that are dedicated to helping our community just heal. Look for
How
those resources.
how do how do one begin to heal from this? Uh,
That is a loaded question, but what I'm going to say, generally speaking, is self-knowledge is the beginning. What you said earlier about having to realize what it is that I've done, how I've impacted my community, how that makes me feel. Is this something that I can reflect on and learn from it? Or do I feel like I really need to talk to someone about it? Just because you've been through trauma doesn't mean you're traumatized. And just because you have problems in life doesn't mean that you automatically need therapy. But when you've been through years and years of really hard, gut wrenching situations, how do you heal from that without getting someone to help you on that journey? Nipsey Hussle is one of my favorite artists, and
mhm.
he has a song in there that talks about gang initiation and what they have to do. And when I hear those lyrics, I sit back and I say, okay, so how does the person who has to do that deal with the trauma of doing that? Because in the streets, it's like, well, you get rid of all your emotions and feelings, but realistically, you're still a person. You're still a person that is made up of feelings and emotions. What do you do? And I think the question, the reason at this point is because we really don't have an answer to the question. How do you start to heal from some of that stuff? My suggestion is just what you said, acknowledging where you're at, and then determining what do you feel it's going to take for you to get to a place where you do feel whole. And if you do need to talk to someone, look for someone who can really understand where you're coming from and what your experiences have been. There are a lot of us that are dedicated to our community. And so you don't get judgment about being in the street life. When I worked in that program, shout out to Miss Mission St. Louis, when I worked with those clients, it was a no judgment zone. Like, let me just hear what you have to say and see where I can help you in this process of your journey of healing.
Mm. You're the professional. You know, uh, you know everything when it comes to
No,
this stuff.
no.
It's but I have to ask you, uh, dealing with the numbers of kids with mental health illness, how much help is out there in the schools that are willing to? Well, I can't put it on the schools, but that's where a child spends most of his days,
Hmm.
especially in the inner city specifically, because the inner city kids go through so much. How much is mental health numbers or dollars or whatever are committed to the school system to help with these issues?
Well, I think that depends on the state you live in. Most schools, generally speaking, they have school counselors. um, at the elementary level, they actually do counseling. But counselors at the junior high and high school levels often don't. And even here in St. Louis, many districts, if it's a high school or middle schooler, they may refer that student out to an external service
Hmm.
to get the support they need. This is problematic. First of all, there's a crisis of providers for children under 10. So you think about Chicago and St. Louis, two of the highest homicides rates in the country, and you think about the impact on the children that are impacted by all these deaths. We don't have enough social workers, counselors, psychologists, psychiatrists, nurse practitioners. We don't have enough people to help these children through some of what they've been through. And especially in the schools where tax money's being cut,
Hmm.
funding's being cut. When you take cities like East Cleveland or St. Louis, for example, if you go into the affluent areas, the schools are big and beautiful. They have all the resources.
Hmm.
You come to this inner city or communities where the tax base has been decimated, not only do they not have enough education resources, they don't have enough support resources. This is where um, people like the psychologists I work for come in, where they provide services, slide and scale and reduce fee and reduce rate. But you have to search for it. It's like being an investigator, detective. You got to find that for your kids. I
Okay.
think that's a travesty. And it's we should not stand for that, especially in communities where the street life is affecting us the most.
Hmm.
We should be demanding that services for our kids that are living in areas where they see things that kids shouldn't see. We should be demanding there are services or ways to deal with this. And we don't because, well, somebody will take care of it, right?
Yeah, that's the part a lot of us, we look for others to fix our problems in our households and in our communities instead of stepping up and doing these things ourselves. A lot of times, as you say, families got three, four jobs, and
Hmm.
who's there to spend time with the kid and support the kid, and it's we got our work to cut out. And a lot of these kids are brilliant. A lot of these
Yes.
kids are brilliant. They get on social media and they find a way. I That's where I say social media is great because it takes a lot of these kids out of those situations. But then again, social media is the curse for a lot of these kids. But it's like, what do you do?
Right.
Miss
But
Santiago,
listen,
go ahead.
listen. When we by default, it used to be the TV. We used to sit kids in front of the
Yep,
TV.
yep,
And now we sit them in front of social media. Why? Because as adults, it's too much for us. It's hard for us to deal with. We don't know what to do
yeah,
necessarily. So we sit the kids and, you go over there and do this while I'm trying to get myself together. It's indicative of what you said when we started talking. The brokenness permeates our whole society. And we should not be okay
hmm,
with all the information that's filtered to our young people without any checks and balances.
yeah,
And we just say, well, social media, everybody's doing it. Okay, that's the case, but you got parental controls. Why don't you use
yes,
them?
yes,
You've got things you can put in place. But if I don't have a good sense of what my values are because I'm broken, how do I manage values for my little ones? I mean, that's a real thing.
yeah. You know, I sit up here and I listen to a lot of people's stories. Sometimes I say, well, you can overcome, you can overcome that. Simple. Uh, I listened to Dr. Dana France's story.
Yes.
Quit high
Yes.
school and go on to become uh, what she is.
Yes.
And hey, if I forget what episode, go on to Convos with Anita Santiago and Dr. Fran's story, part one and part two. Listen to
Yeah.
this woman's journey. I guarantee you will understand the power of a black woman.
Yes.
But it's like, well, for me looking at it, it's like it's no excuse. Yes, there are things that happen But if you can go and just apply and just do it, put your mind to it and just do it. It's sometimes it's not that hard. Um,
And sometimes it's not that easy.
Easy, correct,
And
correct.
I'm going to say that when you're broken and
Hmm.
lost and struggling, sometimes you need someone to guide you
Mm,
to doing better. And that's where the community comes in. If I'm stuck, I can't see I'm stuck,
stuck, right.
but my friend can see I'm stuck, and she can say, "Hey, you seem a little stuck. Maybe you should consider something." And then we get a different presentation. We get
Hmm.
things presented to us differently, and we can say, "Oh, well, maybe I should try." I agree with you that we can move through difficult things, and I think we can all have a better experience.
Hmm.
I think the difficulty is when people are stuck.
Hmm.
I've done all this bad stuff. My life sucks. My credit is trash. I can't get no job. Blah blah blah.
Hmm.
And we don't have anybody saying, things have been bad, but better days are ahead. Let me see if what I can plug you into that may be helpful. See, that's another thing. Talk is cheap.
Mm.
We have to do. If you want to help someone, find a resource, be a listening ear, be a sounding board, watch the kids while they go look for a job or something. We just can't tell people, well, you should get off the streets because you absolutely have the ability to do it. Okay, but I need a shower and a haircut. How's that gonna happen?
Hmm.
Oh, did you know there's a mobile service where you could wash your clothes, and let me figure out where they're gonna be. Let me pick you up, scoop you up, and get you there. We have to do more doing to help people get through.
Yes.
And I absolutely agree with you. I'm cheering for everybody. Everybody in the struggle, I'm cheering for you because I've been able to witness with my own eyes working in mental health. People transcend those things, those challenges and obstacles to
This
get to
is
better days. But
this
we
is why
have
I
to do
want
it together.
this is why I wanted to have you on. You you see a lot of things coming through, your industry. Let me ask you, what's one of the most worst moments you've seen dealing with mental health? Uh, I know it's doctor, the privacy, everything, but what's
Hmm.
one of the most uh, moments, that disappointing moments that you've seen in that industry?
Okay, I'll tell you. My feelings about community are very strong. I
Hmm.
feel personally that we cannot exist without community around us. And in working with the severely mentally ill clients, these would be clients that have severe bipolar schizophrenia. The most heartbreaking thing I ever experienced was a young man. He really reminded me of my son because he was about the same age. He had gone through all of these experiences because of his illness.
Hmm.
He had gotten ill like around the age of 18 or so. And let's say now he's in his early 30s. And all these experiences, instead of the people who knew him, family, friends rallying around him, hey, we understand something's wrong. Let's see how we can help you. He was totally abandoned. So here's this young black man with an illness that he doesn't really understand. He's stigmatized because of the label of it in a world with no one. No one. Not a
Wow.
mother, not a father, not a brother, not an aunt, not a cousin, not a friend. Not a friend. And when I realized that he was not going to be able to leave this facility, like he didn't get better, I thought now he's facing the rest of his life being very severely ill with no one. How how in the world, coming from the experiences that black Americans have had in this country, and I'm really trying not to get emotional because this one really got me.
Hmm.
How did we get to the point that we walk away. Well, I don't do crazy and I ain't got to be time to be bothered with that. But they're us. They're
Yes.
part of us. Now, I'm not saying anybody should ever be unsafe. I'm not saying you should take on things that you literally don't have the capacity to deal with. But how do we abandon people because we don't want to be bothered? We don't understand it. So I don't understand why you in that game. So I'm gonna disown you. Really?
Mm.
And I understand we have to be careful and safe and all of that. But if we can't count on each other, if we can't count on family and friends, who do we have? That was probably the most sobering moment when I realized how cruel the experience of mental health can be. This young man is trying to get better,
Hmm.
but he can't because the symptoms are just so bad. And there is literally no one to be there, just to be there in love.
And
This young man is in his 30s.
sometimes that's all it takes is for someone to be there and love that can snap a person out of it. Um, Now, let me ask you the most proudest and prize winning moment that you had dealing with mental health situations.
Um, the most, one of the most proud moments I had is in the current practice where I work, healing space and psychological services in St. Louis, and we provide a variety of services. And one time we had a client who had struggled with different things throughout his life,
Hmm.
only to find out that the diagnosis wasn't accurate.
Oh.
And so, as we were talking to that client, he broke down and he just felt such a sense of relief that, wow, I think you guys got it right. Like, I understand what you're saying, and this makes more sense because this person had gone through their lives just one diagnosis after another, one pill after another, never really feeling like anything ever got better. And now, you know, as a middle-aged person, to say, "Oh my gosh, all of that was wrong, and now I have something that's accurate, and I feel so much better." And let me tell you, at that moment, I was so grateful to be able to bring the expertise under along with my
Yeah, yeah.
supervisor to us, to our community, to give the kind of high quality, in-depth, complex psychological services that most of us never get. And it was a game changer for this person. It was a real game changer for them. And I felt like, this is it. I'm never leaving. I'm going to be here. I'm in for the long haul, because if I can do this over and over and over again, touch one life, which touches another life, which touches another
Yes,
life.
yes.
So that was one of my most proud moments, that I knew I had made a difference for this man who had struggled all of his life with just different terrible experiences.
Miss Santiago, what's next for you? What you got going on?
Well, what's next for me? I'm trying to finish. I'm trying to finish this program. When I get done with this program, I really want to go more in depth into helping people clarify what their diagnosis is, and just be in the community educating. I want to do a lot of educating around mental illness, what it is and what it isn't.
Hmm.
I want to talk about mental health wellness. We talk about mental illness. What does it look like
Wellness.
when we focus on wellness? Can we get to wellness? Absolutely. Like you just said, people can come up out of hard circumstances. We can get to wellness, but we don't hear that conversation. We
Mm.
hear, well, you have this label, you got to carry it around the rest of your life. Well, how you carry it is up to you. I wanna talk about how we increase the quality of life for people who deal with lifelong mental challenges.
Hmm.
They need community. We got to stop being scared as family and friends and say, okay, how can I help appropriately? None of us have to do it all if we all have community. If everybody comes together around that one person, nobody has to do the heavy lift. And I believe like we can change our experience around how we deal with mental illness if we can just get the conversation going.
You you really said enough on this one. Uh, I think the people damn sure are gonna have their head full. Let everybody know where they can reach out to you at.
Okay, if you want to reach out to me directly, like by email, you can email me at convos, that's CONVOSCWS at gmail.com. If you want to catch the podcast. Now, my podcast, I don't exclusively talk about mental health or mental illness.
Correct.
I talk about a lot of different topics. And if you really think about it, these topics touch mental health.
Yes.
But
Yes.
Convos with Anita Santiago podcast on all platforms. And if you want to support a sister and get some merch, check out my
Definitely.
website. I've got branded website, and I also have a reading room on my website with great books and everything like that.
Hmm.
My website is Life Convos. That's LIFECONVOS.com. Why am I spelling it? Because I'm from St. Louis and we changed everything. So I just want to make sure you heard me right.
Well, we'll put out everything up there. So, Miss Santiago, thank you. Keep doing great work for the people as you always been doing, and we'll talk.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.